Let me ask you guys, how many of you believe in ghosts? How many are not sure? Maybe? No? All right. Have you ever been on a ghost hunt or maybe a public ghost tour? Okay. Well, does anybody want to go on ghost hunting? I want to do ghost hunting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, and you'll hear all about it. So my name is Bill Slevin. I'm the founder and lead investigator for the Paranormal Existence Research Society. We're based out of Coral Springs. We have teams in Georgia, in Nebraska, in Florida, UK, Italy, and Greece. I've been doing this for about 35 years, and I've done probably 500-600 homes. We do a lot of residential investigations. We do public stuff too, but I'm more, on the residential side. I've been on, if you have Travel Channel Discovery Plus, right now I'm on their new shock doc. It's called Devil's Academy. I'm going to talk about that a little bit on here. Really, really cool story. I was on the cover of American Paranormal Magazine this month. And anybody horror fans? Okay. So Ed and Lorraine Warren and the Conjuring movies and all that stuff. So I'm the regional director for the Southeast U.S. for the Warren Legacy Foundation. It was created by Chris McKennell, who's the grandson of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and Lorraine before she passed away. So they created this foundation to kind of keep their legacy going of helping people across the world. We have probably about 100 members across the world. So I cover the Southeast. So I cover everything from West Virginia down to Florida, every case that comes in. Chris is a great guy. He has a lot of stories about the real stories behind the movies and stuff. But if you go, we have Phantasm is in the Phantasm Horror Convention in Orlando in September, and Chris will be there with me talking. He's going to do a lot of panels about everything about the Warrens. So I'm just going to tell you quickly a little bit. Can everybody hear me without the microphone? I hate microphones. So when you see on the TV, there's two different terms you'll hear. You hear ghost hunter and paranormal investigator. They're kind of the same. The difference is most ghost hunters are people that just go out to public things, go to ghost tours, and just kind of like a hobby. Where a paranormal investigator is more of a serious thing. It's not so much amateur. We do residential cases where we go into people's homes. It is very, very different. We tell everybody, if you want to do ghost hunting, go on a ghost tour, grab some small equipment, maybe an audio recorder or something like that, and you can have fun anywhere, in the cemetery, anywhere you go, something's haunted, especially if you go to St. Augustine and everything here. Yeah, everything's haunted. But if you're going to get into the side of residential where you're going to help people in a home, go with people who know what they're doing, because we encounter everything with psychiatric illness, addiction, and all kind of things where if you don't know what you're doing, you can really harm these people. Or if it's something bad in there, you're not going to know how to handle it. Everybody on the TV shows everything's a demon, everything's evil. That's not true. It is out there. I'm a demonology specialist, so I'm called into demonic cases. And those things you will never forget in your life. Some of the stuff you see on TV is very real. Of course, they make it a little crazy, but some of that stuff is very, very real. And if you don't know what you're doing and you get in there and you just start provoking things and something could come out that you're not going to know how to handle. So you could harm you could harm the clients, in the home. It's just kind of important to, really know what you're doing before you go into a home. So a few places here that we've gotten to go to I'm down in Coral Springs, but we go all over Florida. If anybody knows, anybody here of Yesteryear Village or the Riddle House in West Palm? So the Riddle House is one of the most haunted places in the country, and it was made very popular because Ghost Adventures was there. So the Riddle House in West Palm, there's a thing called Yesteryear Village. Yesteryear Village is like all the oldest homes in West Palm that were uprooted and moved there. And they all have histories in them. Like some of them are like the old Bell South, I think, building. There's some homes like the Riddle House and the L Street House, the Pineapple House. They all have different haunted histories behind them too. So during the day you could go there and they're little museums. But every once in a while there's a team, War Party Paranormal, that we deal with, that they run like the city tours for them, like a haunted tour. So at night, every once in a while, they get their own private tour to go in with just their team. And then they call me in a lot, we get to go in. The Riddle House is a very active place. Most of those houses in there are very, very active. I actually have a piece of evidence on here. I'll show you later where in the West, what was it? I think it was October of last year. We're at the Riddle House, and I've never had. When you go on a ghost tour, especially a haunted thing like that, you know, people get nervous. Normally, nothing is going to follow you out of there or come after you because they're attached to the buildings. But if you go in and you're disrespectful and you provoke, or you know, it can happen just for no reason. They can come at you or maybe throw their energy on you, and very rare for me because I'm usually well protected. But in October, I had an issue, and I'm going to play at the EVP later, and this thing attached to me. I don't know what it was, probably for about a week and a half. I was sick. I had every type of bad luck you can have. I had to get blessed and cleansed and get it off me. Very rare. I've had it a few times over my life, but just always, I say, always be respectful. You know, I was respectful, but for some reason, it didn't like me. You'll hear on the audio recording. But it's a really great place if you want to see anything like that. It's a great history of West Palm anyway, but at nighttime when they do the ghost tours, it's really a great place. This was one of my favorite places to investigate. It was, anybody know where Belglade, Florida is? So this was the abandoned Belglade Correctional Facility. It was a 250-acre prison in the middle of the sugarcane fields. So if you want scary, that's where you go. When I actually brought some new team members on my team one year, right before COVID hit, I took 3 of them out, and I knew they were into it, and I know they liked it, but I want to see how they can handle it. Because not everybody can handle it. Not everybody can handle it. So I brought them to the prison to see. Because if you're going to do this and you can handle it, you'll know when you're in a prison at 2 o'clock in the morning with no lights, no power, and no nothing. You know, I'm more worried about the living people that come in there. They have gangs, they have stuff, so you got to be careful. But this place in the chapel and in the medical facility was unbelievably active. I mean, we have stuff, audio, video, devices going off, and we're very, very scientific. So like I'm not one of these people that go in and think everything's haunted and everything's a ghost. And I'm a parapsychologist. I've been studying it for years. I should have my PhD this year in parapsychology and metaphysical humanistic science. And we use that because when we go into people's homes, we want to give them the best info we can. So I will definitely debunk things, but when you're in an abandoned prison, there's really not much in there that can set some of these devices off. And then we get intelligent responses where it kind of listens to us. We'll tell it to go do something, and then it'll tell it to stop, and it'll stop, and tell it to go back. That's what we look for, you know, more of an intelligence. This place was great. They demolished it because too many people were going in. Somebody burnt the church down. Somebody burnt one of the other buildings down, and I guess the city finally gave up. And we went up there, and my wife and me, on our way home from somewhere, and I said, "Oh, let's see if we can still get in. You know, if we were still open." Gone. They leveled the whole thing. So the problem is, I don't know what they're putting up there. It was like a factory or something. Whatever's in there doesn't leave when they demolish a building. So I don't know if it's going to be all around in that factory, but they're going to have some issues. Well, this is more of the prison. Like I said, the chapel was crazy. I have some really cool evidence to show you from the chapel. Has anybody been down to Key West?
Yes.
Okay. So the Key West Cemetery, I love this place. It's like a New Orleans cemetery. Most of it is above ground because of the water level. But I don't know if you can see it too well on this TV, but that last grave, that's Eugene Otto. Eugene Otto was the owner of Robert the Doll. Anybody know who Robert the Doll is? Robert the Doll is the most haunted doll in the world. People say it was Annabelle, but it's not. Annabelle attacked one family. This guy causes problems to a lot of people. If you go down there, it's safe. You could go down and see him and take pictures and do all that. But, like they say, you have to ask permission to take his picture, and you have to be respectful. And if you don't, they say bad things can happen to you. And when I used to go down years ago, because I'm good friends with David Sloan, who's like he's the doll taker, they call him, the caretaker for Robert the Doll. He wrote the book on Robert the Doll. He does the tour. If you want to see a great tour, he actually goes in for about 30 minutes, locked down into the room with Robert with equipment, and you can actually investigate in there with Robert. Very interesting experience. But If you before they used to have letters that littered the whole entire place of people who wrote to him begging for his forgiveness because they didn't respect him, didn't ask permission to take his picture, and the bad things started happening to them. Is it coincidence? I don't know, but everywhere I go, usually somebody has a story about robbery. When we were at MegaCon a couple of years ago, one guy raised his hand right away as I was talking about robbery, and he said that him and his friend were just there. His friend was being completely disrespectful, thought it was a joke, wouldn't do anything, taking pictures, and when they walked out, his car wouldn't start. So they called somebody, and they said the starter was dead. So he said they left the car there. They came back the next morning. Car was still dead. They called AAA. He convinced his friend, go in there and apologize to that damn thing, you know. He went in, he apologized. AAA came, turned the car on, there was no problem. So again, coincidence? I don't know. We actually had, when I was at a library show down in Coral Springs, this one was sad. I didn't know how to kind of react to it. But a guy came up to us at the end of the show and he's like, if you talk about Robert, please stress to everybody how dangerous it is if you're disrespectful. And he said that him and his wife were there. They went in, the wife was laughing, took pictures, made fun of him, joked around. They left, they got into a car accident, she was killed. Now, I'm sure it was coincidence, but I've been doing this 35 years. When I go down, I ask him permission. I don't know what the story is behind it, but that's why they say he's the most haunted doll, because he's kind of attacked multiple people, not like Annabelle. But if you go see him, he's definitely fine. You don't have to be scared, just be respectful. It's not like he's going to answer you and say, no, you can't take my picture. You just have to ask. That's all it is. So the Devil's Academy, if you got, like I said, if you have Discovery Plus or Travel Channel, this is a really, really cool story. It's about a mass possession of a school in Miami back in 1971. Now, it was a military school. They were abusing the kids a bit. They were very harsh on the kids. They used corporal punishment with them, and they really, really oppressed these kids. So a lot of people say it was just the kids acting out because one day everything just exploded in there. But they were teaching them Santeria, Ouija boards, tarot cards. They were doing seances. They were doing, what else was it? Hypnosis, all kind of things, and not teaching them what it was, just teaching them to do it. They were doing it in the school. So the one day, they were hypnotizing one of the girls who was the teacher that was doing some kind of session on her. I don't know why she was doing it, but she was hypnotizing her, and the girl kind of freaked out and ran out of the room. They followed her into the bathroom, and she started saying that the devil was inside her. And then they said, the eyewitnesses said that she actually levitated off the ground. And then at the same time, a bunch of kids were having like a fight in one of the rooms, and one of the kids jumped through the glass on the second floor. The second floor window, landed, I think, face first down into the concrete. And he got right up, didn't have a scratch on him. The security guard went over to him to see if he was okay, and he picked up the security guard and threw him clear across the parking lot. Kids were ripping doors off the hinges, and, you know, the story is really good. They put it together like a little mini horror story, you know, and they have other people in there, a couple of exorcists and things like that. And they have some eyewitnesses. I think it was the fire chief who actually responded to this. And I think the I don't know if it was the mayor or the police chief. And they said when they were there, they didn't understand it. They said some of the kids' eyes were pure black or red. And that people ripped the doors off, things that normal kids didn't have the strength to do. So if you want to really hear about this, it's a really interesting story. There's a lot to it. And I wish it was now, because they would have had cameras in that school. Because I would have loved to seen some of the footage of what they're saying. You know, we're going by what they say. I go, it could be either, because they were oppressed in there. You know, I think the dean of the school who owned it was from Cuba, and he was a military guy, and he came in and he really, you know, kind of abused these kids. But they did level the building now. I think there's something else there. So they couldn't get a lot, for some reason, they couldn't get a lot of people onto that show who witnessed it. A lot of people would not talk about it. I don't know if they were traumatized by it or something, but a lot of them wouldn't talk about it, but they did have one or two people that were there and witnessed it. I think they were trying to get the girl who levitated off the ground, but they couldn't talk to her. I don't know if she wanted to talk to them or not. So I'm going to quickly just talk. If you're into ghost hunting, I want to quickly talk about evidence. What you see on TV and YouTube and everywhere on the internet, 60% is probably not real. You know, they fake a lot of stuff, they enhance a lot of stuff. But if you really want to go and see what you can really capture, there's some things to just look for. You know, notice your environment. If you're going to take pictures, always take 3 shots of whatever you're doing. Take 3 pictures in a row. Because if there's a shadow that maybe in that picture, everybody's like, oh, it's a ghost. But you don't know what it was. You don't know what happened at that time. If that shadow is in every photo, it's probably nothing. If it was in one and you took 3 in succession, then it's a good chance it could be something. But that's always a rule. Use that when you use your flash. If you go on a ghost tour, they will tell you, take pictures, use your flash. Because flash creates orbs. Well, first, pareidolia. Everybody hear the term pareidolia? Pareidolia is a term for, if you could see this, it's when your mind looks at something that's unidentified, it tries to identify it. So, like, you know, people see a face in the cloud and things like that. That is a very big term because everybody takes a picture and then they zoom in and then they find a leaf on the tree across the street and they're 600 times zoomed in and, oh, look, I have a face of a demon. No, a demon or a ghost does not hide in a leaf across the street. That's not how it works. When you capture something, you will see it. It'll be right out in the open. But everybody hear of, these are lens flares. So these are, anybody go to St. Augustine? St. Augustine is the most haunted city in the country. It's the oldest city in the country. These pictures were actually taken by me, and I don't know if you can see them. They have lens flares across them. That's just a light reflection from the town. They look cool. And I took them on the Ghost and Gravestones tour up in St. Augustine. And the funny part about it is the one that has the big purple slash across the next day, I had that on Instagram on my page, and I did not say it was something because I knew it was. I just said, oh, really cool picture, and I tagged Ghost and Gravestones in it. The next day, it was on the front page of their website. They gave me credit for it, but it was on the front page of their website because stuff like that attracts people to it. Orbs are the next thing. Everybody will talk about these things. There's pictures and videos all over the internet about this. Unfortunately, these are not ghosts. There is a real thing that is spirit orb. These are not. All of this stuff is dust and bugs and pollen and dander and rain and moisture on the lens. Everything in the world can cause these things, especially if you're using a flash. I show people, again, I don't know if you can see it. These are dust particles, pollen spores, textile fibers, lens flares. These are rods. So when if you have a Ring camera or a security, cameras in your house or around your home, people will get things like this and they get completely freaked out because the cameras don't have a fast frame rate. So if a bug flies by, they can't get the flapping of the wings. So it makes like this rod and a trail. It looks real crazy and everybody thinks, they got an angel flying around their house or something. But they're actually bugs. And this is from moisture. The reason I tell people about that is because if you really want to go out there and capture something, know that this is not ghosts. A real spirit orb is a very, very rare thing. It is an actual 3D ball of energy. It is believed that it is a spirit or a demon trying to manifest itself into the room. So you will see it actually grow. I've seen 3 in my lifetime. You will actually, one I saw was about this big and it grew to about that big. And it has its own light. It's like literally a ball of energy. It puts out its own light. So if it went onto an infrared camera like that, it wouldn't reflect the light like that. It would actually trick the camera into daylight mode because it would think you turned the light on in the house. It is so bright and it moves very intelligently. It does not just go with the airflow, It is very, very, very different. They are out there, and the main thing is, you have to see it with your eyes. That you will not see with your eyes. You will only see it on the camera because the only reason you're seeing that little speck of dust or something is because the infrared lights are bouncing off of it and making it glow. And you can't see infrared with your eyes. So that's, if you see a ball of light moving around in front of you, most likely that is a ghost. Some kind of spirit trying to, manifest. So I don't know if you guys, can you see the screen at all? A little bit? You're never going to be able to see that, right? So if you can see the little things flying around, it's dust. These are things off the internet. I'll show you this one. You might be able to see this. This is the one that tricks people the most. So if you watch this, see that? Everybody thinks, well, it's sitting there and it's bouncing. That's a spider. It's a spider on a spider web. The cameras can't focus that close up, so it makes everything blurry and round. And then the infrared light bounces off of it. But it confuses people. They see that it moves around, and we tell them it's spider. They go, well, we went outside and there was no spider there. There was no spider web. Most spiders spin their webs at night, and then by morning take them down and they hide. So if that was going on your Ring camera at night, and you go out there and look and there's no spider web, it's because he's hiding. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some equipment, so I can explain to you what it does and how it works before I show you some of the evidence. So this is the main thing. We use digital recorders. You could use any type of recorder. I do like some of the older ones just because they say that they're on like a lower frequency and they seem to pick up more. But I have if you come into my cabin over there, you'll see I have a ton of equipment. I have so many different recorders. We do what's called EVPs. So we sit there and we hit record and we'll ask a question. Is anybody here? And then everybody stays silent for about 10 to 15 seconds. Sometimes we'll ask multiple questions. We say silent, you hit stop, you play it back. Sometimes you will get a response. Sometimes you get a lot of junk, just static and noise, and everybody jumps and screams and thinks it's something. It could be, but if I can't make it out, I don't consider it real. But sometimes you will get full, intelligent responses that will blow your mind. My favorite evidence is audio, because you can't really fake this. If you get a camera, people nowadays, between pictures and video, everybody could make anything they want. These recorders, you can't even take this off into a computer. So we have to film it with our phone and play it back. It's the only way to capture it. But this audio is your best. If you want to start ghost hunting, get an audio recorder, any of them, the new Olympus, anything like that, and bring that with you. It's tough when you're on a ghost tour because sometimes there's a lot of noise, a lot of people talking and everything. So just be mindful of the people around you and what you're doing. This is a REM pod. A REM pod creates an electromagnetic field around it. There's a button that'll set, I think it goes maybe about this far around. And then you can tell the spirits to go toward it. And if they come in range, the lights will all go up. The closer they are to it, the more the lights go off, and then the more it makes a lot of noise. But again, things can cause this to go off. But if you're in a place where there's no power, no nothing, and you could get it to go to it, and then stop, and then go back to it, then you probably have something because it's more of an intelligent response. Things can cause these things to go off at any time. I'm an IT director during the day, so I know a lot about technology for over 30 years too. And I work at a psychiatric drug and alcohol treatment facility. So I've learned a lot about psychiatric illness and addiction and everything, which helps when we go into people's homes. A lot of TV shows use this. It's called an ovulus. What it does is you turn it on, and spirits can manipulate the energy, and it will spit out words. A lot of times you can turn it on, and it'll just start spitting out random words that just don't make sense and could be nothing. But if you get something that responds to you, it's kind of interesting. And again, I have something to show you with that. It's pretty interesting. This is a spirit box. Now, a spirit box, anybody know what a spirit box is, a ghost box? This scans radio frequencies. So when you turn it on, you set it to a certain speed, and it will ramble through stations, either FM or AM. And you'll hear it going as it goes through the stations. It's believed that the spirits can manipulate the white noise. So a lot of people say these are not real because what you're hearing is voices coming out of the actual radio stations. And sometimes you do, but we do what's called, there's two different things. Years ago, there's a thing they created called the Estes method, where what you do is you put on noise-canceling headphones, like I use Vic Firth drummer headphones, and you put it into the spirit box, and then you blindfold the person. And then they sit there, and we ask the question, and they're not influenced by our questions because they can't hear us. Because if you sit there and if I ask a question like, did you work here or did you live here? Everybody's brain is going to go to it and be listening for work or live or whatever. You're going to hear it. Your mind does that. So they can't hear us. So they just yell out anything they hear. And you will be amazed sometimes at what they say, especially if they happen to be sensitive or psychic. I have some psychics on my team. When we do this, it's unbelievable what she comes up with. So years ago, they had a thing called the Gansfield experiment. This is in parapsychology. What they did was they took ping pong balls, cut them in half, put them over the people's eyes, and they hit them with red light deprivation. And that was to open up their senses for ESP, to test them. So a friend of mine that works with War Party Paranormal, what he did was he created a pair of goggles, and I have them at the table, and it's called the Delco experiment. And what it does is instead of the blindfold, we put the goggles on, and it gives red light deprivation into their eyes. And we did this over at the Port St. Lucie at a thing called the Devil's Tree. Anybody ever hear of the Devil's Tree in Port St. Lucie? That's an interesting story behind that. There's some little kids here. I'm not going to go into details, but the Devil's Tree is a tree it's in a park in the woods. And I think it was in 1970 or 71. It was a cop that took two girls there and killed them, and hung them from the tree and then buried them. And I think it was 1975 or 76 where fishermen came by, saw bones sticking out of the ground, and called somebody, and that's how they found out. And the guy actually got arrested, went to jail, and I think he got killed in jail in like 1985. But then once the story came out, I think he confessed to 30 murders, but not in that place. It was 2 there. The problem is all the devil worshippers and Satanists and cultists started going there and doing rituals around the tree. It's causing a lot of problems. A lot of people believe what's there is not the girls or the guy, it's what they brought in. Nobody knows. But there's a lot of stories behind this where they say that they came there, the town said, we got to get rid of this tree. And they brought poison, and they poisoned the tree to kill it. It didn't do anything. Then they brought people with chainsaws, and they said every time the chainsaw touched the tree, the chainsaw broke. I don't know how true that is, but that it's still there. So that's what they say. They say if you go and you take a piece of that tree, that something can happen to you. And there's a story that I don't know if you know who Mark Muncy is, but in Erie, Florida. He does all the books that tell all the stories of Florida. He's in my cabin with me. I heard him telling the story that a lady was mad at her ex-husband and she wanted to get him back. So she went, took a piece of the tree, like a bark from the tree, and was going to put it in his car to get him back. But she didn't think that it's in her car on the way to him. And she had a car accident and got killed. So if you go there, I wouldn't suggest taking something. And that's the other thing. Don't ever take anything from a haunted location. I had a team member when we were in the prison. You go in the medical facility. It was kind of cool. It was like all x-rays and stuff all over the ground still. So they leave everything. So one of my teammates is like, wow, this would make a cool art project. I'm like, I wouldn't do that. If you take something out of there, you have no idea if it's going to be attached to you or not. This is a static dome. So this runs similar to the REM pod, but doesn't create energy around it. It only gets manipulated by static energy. So a ghost could come in and actually manipulate this, and you'll see where they're coming from. Because this light will be on, and then all these around, only where it's coming from will they light up. And sometimes you'll get intelligent responses where they go. There's nothing else. You could, like when this is on, you could pick it up, you could move it, you could put phones by it. Nothing sets this off, only static energy. So it's a little different where something, if you go out, just my opinion, do not use ghost apps on your phone. Get a little recorder, something cheap, whatever. Cat, everybody know cat toys. I didn't bring one. I have them in motion activated cat balls. This is the newest thing everybody's using in paranormal. If you put it on, it goes off and then it stops. And it'll sit there. And then if you get something to go to it, anything that touches it, it will then light up. You have to keep it on something, make sure there's no air, make sure it's not on something that's going to roll. But it's pretty interesting at night when these things do, I've seen them work, but it's a cheap way to investigate. You don't need to spend all the money on this stuff. But ghost apps, I know some of the people who created a couple of them, they are programmed to produce responses. Things like GhostTube and Necrophonics, I think it's called, or something like that. What they're doing is they're telling you that your phone now has the technology to do these things. They do not. Your phone cannot detect EMF energy. Your phone cannot detect temperature changes. It doesn't have the technology in it. SLS camera, where they have the stick figures, GhostTube is notorious for that. It has its own SLS camera. SLS cameras on their own are probably about 5% effective for real, but the phone apps, it will map out anything you see. A chair, it'll be a person. Anything. I've seen it map out patterns on a wallpaper, and it just thinks, because it's made to look for people, because it's used for video games. So like on my SLS camera rig, I have the Xbox Kinect on the front of it, and that is the camera that they use for motion. So it looks for you as a person. It looks for arms and legs and everything. So when you're doing a motion game, it knows what's what. So it will create this little stick figure. But it can pick it up from anything. That's what it does. So I wouldn't suggest using Ghost 2. All right. So I'm going to try to do some of this evidence. See if you can hear it. If not, if you guys can't hear it, you can't see it, and you want to see it close up, come back to the cabin and I'll plug the laptop in and we'll do it. So this was a picture that I took up in the St. Augustine Cemetery. And again, if you can see it, see it on the screen. There's it looks like, if you want to come up and look too, gladly come up and look. But it was something coming out of the actual tombstone. When I took it, I didn't see it. I wasn't smoking. There was nobody around me, because I always look for stuff like that. People blow smoke, and then all of a sudden it looks like a demon flying across the screen. But there was nothing there. I was by myself. A lot of stuff, a lot of evidence you'll get a month later when you look into a picture and you go, wait a second, what is this? That's why I always say take 3 pictures. So this is the Key West Cemetery, okay? These pictures were taken at about 4:30 in the morning when I was roaming back to my hotel, and me and my friend, I always have my camera, and this was like almost 10 years ago. And I just sticking the camera through the fence because you can't get in there. And I was just taking pictures, and I was using a flash. And everything looks normal, and you're probably not going to see this, but in this picture, I circulated. All of a sudden, I had this. I don't know if you could see it. It's right here. It's a full, if you see it up close, it looks like a full shadow of a person. And I tried every way to debunk this picture, because a flash will create a shadow. But the problem is, somebody would have to be in front of that flash to cast that shadow. And then when we were looking at the pictures, the next picture in the same sequence was this one, and there was another one here. It was almost like it was following us down the cemetery. And again, come by the cabin, I'll show you everything. Audio hopefully is good. Here's an example of the ovulus. So we were at this place called Flamingo Gardens down in Davie. It's like a little zoo, but one of my teammates actually works there, and they have an old house there that's a museum. So we got permission to go in and check it out. One of my teammates was playing with the ovulus, and he saw a record player, and he goes, what kind of music did you listen to? Did you listen to music? And then all of a sudden it popped up with a random word, Edison. And then when we looked up at the record player, the brand of the record player was Edison. So those are the type of things that we can't totally explain, but it just seems like a crazy random word. And then I didn't even know it was Edison, record players. It's an old record player. So here's an example of the SLS cameras, okay? Again, about 5% of the time, you might have something, but this one was interesting, and you will learn this. If you go out, here's the best thing you will understand. The best evidence is never captured. It's always when you put your camera down, and when you're not expecting it, it is the best. That's when it is. I don't know why. But this one, if you look at the big guy there, and you can see on the right, you can see the actual shape of a person. That is one of my teammates. But the thing next to him, it was just dancing around there for a while. We don't know if it was picking something up or not, but eventually it stopped and it went away. And then, like I said, I was holding the rig, and then I had my phone like this because I didn't have the screen capture yet. I put my phone down. We heard a noise. I turned the SLS camera, and it came on over here, and then it ran off the screen. So if something actually moves off the screen, that's a pretty good sign of it's not fake. We were looking for animals, because the other thing is, when you go to a place, I don't truly recommend abandoned places, because there's so many things. I know people who got $5,000 fines for going in and trespassing, and there's a lot of dangers in the place, because you don't know if there's mold, you don't know if there's things. We went into that prison the first time. We did not know it was infested with giant brown barn owls. And when you're in the prison in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden you hear this screeching noise, and you have no idea what it is, so be aware of what you're doing in there, because That was a little weird. Now this one was in the medical facility of the prison, and the strange thing about this is, if you see to the right, you see how it actually has the shape of the person. That never happened. There was nobody in front of this camera. Everybody was behind me, and it just sat there. It didn't move. I've never seen that happen, and I've never seen it map out an actual person when there was no person in front. So I don't know what it was, but again, we used to get a lot of activity in that medical facility. Okay, so here's the static dome. This is what you're going to see about an intelligent response. This was in the chapel of the prison, and I'm going to show you when it comes up.
Are you making the lights go up?
If you are, keep going around. Show us that you're here. Keep moving around toward Allison.
Allison is standing in the front. So if you watch that light on the side, you'll see it start moving around toward her.
Great, thank you.
So hard to see out there.
See if you can come a little closer. Keep going around.
It's now in the
Can
front.
you tell us your name?
And then it gets to the front one, right where she's standing, and then goes off. So again, that's what you look for, intelligent responses. Now these are the EVPs. Again, so I don't put a lot that are really, really staticky. Most of the ones I'll put on here are things that we believe is something, you might not hear it, you might interpret it as something different, and that's fine, everybody does that. But these are most of them are pretty clear. That was what we were asking it is this was in the L Street house in Yesteryear Village, and we kept asking it to tell us, let us know you're here, go to the REM pod, go to something, and then it came back and what we heard was here. I don't know if it was actually saying here, but that's what it sounded like to us. Some of these are very, very clear though. Again, this is another one from L Street. Again, come to the cabin, and I'm going to show you on the laptop. So this one of my teammates was at a cemetery during the day. You do not have to ghost hunt at night. The only reason we go out at night most of the time is because a lot of our equipment uses infrared night vision. And ghosts can be seen on spectrums light spectrums that our eyes can't see, full spectrum and infrared. So that's why we use stuff at night. You can go anywhere during the day and just pull out a recorder. If something's there, it's there. It doesn't sleep during the day, But this was at a cemetery, I think it's in Orlando. And they were just there talking, and you'll hear them ask, do you like people or do you prefer to be alone? Do you want to put the microphone? Yeah. Did anybody hear that? Yeah. Okay.
What? I just walked in and I heard something.
Get to the next one. Thank you. So now, this one is with the team I was talking about, War Party Paranormal. This is a really cool capture, so they let me use it for some stuff. They'll explain.
We're here at the former the Broward Women's Correctional Facility, and right off the bat, we get this EVP. That's right.
They'll replay it.
That's me at the end.
Right, but
You kept recording that, right? There's more to that EVP. And there's on voice activation, so it just stops. That's weird. That's all picked up. I didn't pick up like what I was saying.
that's really weird.
But that's someone else, maybe a woman, right?
For some reason, and we don't know why, we get a lot of responses like "help me get out." I don't know why. They don't answer the questions we want to hear. Why you're here, what are you doing, how is it over there? Nobody ever answers that, and I don't know why. Now this one is what I was talking about if you were here when I was talking at the Riddle House in Yesteryear Village. This is the one that something attached to me afterwards. So what happened was, we were with a bunch of people up there in the attic, which they don't normally open up the attic for anybody, because that's where the guy hung himself, and that's what the whole story of the Riddle House is. So we were up in the attic. There was a bunch of guys all using their recorders, and the one guy says, and it's a very different type of EVP because it actually kind of talks over the person asking the question. So he said, talking directly to me, this guy's never been in the attic before. He's got a new device. So what I want you to do, and you'll hear it say what it says right over his voice.
You got louder.
It got louder.
Absolutely got louder.
Now let's see if this does work. JP go.
Word is messy.
Color well shrimp.
So this young man over here, it's his first time up in the attic here. He's got a new device in his hand. So what I want you to do,
What was
He's
that?
dead.
No.
Right over his
He's
voice.
dead.
So play it again.
Bro.
he's got a new device in his hand. So what I want you to do,
Hear that?
That was a little strange. Everybody kind of freaked out. Like when we were walking down the stairs, I gave everybody my equipment because I wanted to hold on to every railing because I've been pushed to the floor. I've been knocked down before. And I didn't want to get knocked downstairs. But when I got home I got home at night. The next day, how you doing? The next day, my wife actually said, "Oh, how'd it go?" She doesn't do ghost hunting, but she had to go, and I was laughing. I go, "Oh, you got to hear this." She didn't find it too funny. And then, literally, I didn't even think about it. And then, probably a week and a half. Sorry, Robert. You want me in here?
Yeah.
All right. Hold Robert. So, again, I got sick. I didn't have a cold. I just didn't feel well. And everything bad happened. Like I said before, I'm an IT director. In my house, I have computers that I built. They're good computers. The whole computer died. I never saw anything like it. I mean, everything happened to me, and I had to get cleansed. So if you go into places again, I'm respectful, but I go in with some kind of protection, like you could buy something with tiger's eye or obsidian. It's just a little bit of protection. But most of the time, they do not follow you out. I don't know what that was about. I don't know who that was or why it came in. That's about it.
The TV doesn't blow over.
I'm gonna skip this one because you'll never ever get this one. This was actually at an old hospital that we know there was some deaths in there. It's like a psychiatric hospital. And then this one, I'm gonna show you this. This one's very different. This is a rare thing. This is what's called a disembodied voice. This is the time we actually heard it with our ears. We were inside this room with a bunch of people at the Gulfstream Hotel in West Palm Beach. And they always say that they had this place for a few years. They were able to go in. It was an abandoned hotel. It's been around for like 100 years, I think. And they said that they have this lady, Mary, that they always talk to in this room. They're trying to get Mary.
Mary, can you hear the noise anywhere? Say something so we can hear you, maybe?
That was a scream that rang through the entire hotel. Everybody heard it with our ears. It wasn't something that came on the recorder afterwards. And when we go into a place, especially like that, we go. It's all we actually go in there like when it's light out. We go fire room and clear the building because sometimes you get homeless people, sometimes you get addicts that are in there, kind of camping out. Got to make sure because that's the last thing you want is to be there at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, ghost hunting. And all of a sudden, the homeless guy pops out at you. Not good for you, and it's definitely not good for him, because we're going to treat that a little different, But does anybody have any questions? Anything at all?
Woke up 4 a.m. in the morning. I just. Neighbor's house, I see a perfect orange orb. Only. I freaked out. Run to the house to get the camera.
It doesn't like cameras.
But it was an orb. No
Right.
cameras or nothing. I mean, perfect.
Yeah, see, that's the difference. That's what you see it with your eyes, and it's very, very different. What I tell most people too is understand that for the most part, ghosts are not there to harm you. If you have a ghost in your house, you think there's something, you're hearing noises, you're hearing things, do not get so scared because they're not there to harm you. They might actually have been there before you were in that house. They may think, what are you doing in my house? You know, they're not there to harm. The demonic side of it is the thing that harms. And that is not something that you go into a house and there just happens to be a demon in the house. It's very, very rare. And it is usually brought in by somebody. Usually they're doing a Ouija board or a seance or something like that that invites it in. You know, Ouija boards, everybody I'm sure has heard, oh, don't play with Ouija boards, you're going to summon a demon. And look, a Ouija board is not dangerous. It's a board. Before the actual Ouija board was created, people used to take a piece of paper and write that on a paper and use a cup. So it's not about the board, it's about your intention of what you're doing. So most people that use a Ouija board, most of them are either, kids playing around. I did it myself. But, or somebody grieving the loss of someone, and they're trying to get that contact. That's where you get in trouble. Because if you pull on that board, and somebody's going to come through, they tell you their grandma, most likely and you're not going to know, and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to talk to them. Let them in, and you will acknowledge it. Once it's in there, it's starting. But so I wouldn't suggest that the playground, but there are, look it up, email me, and I can tell you something, how to do it properly. You just use it and leaving open whatever's there. You're not closing. Careful with it.
Not like that.
Yep.
That's where it came from. We do Santeria.
George, what?
They do Santeria, that.
Oh, yeah, Santeria.
But I came from that.
Yeah. Santeria, if anybody knows, it's not, Santeria is an actual, it gets a bad rap, or anything that has a good bad side to it. The problem is with a lot of them inside, it's still doing a little bit of animal sacrifice. So we dealt with the case that Santeria was going to be bad Santeria. She told us she was having 35, she had that something. She was having all kind of nightmares. They were attacking her at night. She was telling us all this stuff. So it was in the middle of COVID. We didn't want to go to home. She was desperate. So we went there to see. They were there. I can't talk to them. I can feel the energy. And it's a lot of energy. And then she told me she was doing family. Again, a while ago, again, next month, she had things buried all over the yard. You gotta get rid of that. You gotta get it up and get it out of there. But we did a cleansing on her, and we cleansed her. She had the sand, but we cleansed them until they get stop doing that, get the stuff out of there. After that, we follow up with her. After that, I would say, for now, which is about 14 years, she said she had never had a big marathon. Never had an attack, never had anything. So whatever we did, we either cleansed it out or gave her enough to feel safe. Sometimes it's just a matter of feeling she hasn't slept in 35 years. So, but Santeria can be fine if you're a person who's practicing the right side of things. Any more questions? No. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. And like I said, really, if you want to come to the cabin, I have all my equipment out. I have stuff. If you want to talk to me more, if you want to see these things, I'll post them on the laptop in the cabin. I do